Hi there, Chef Maggie here. Today we're going to make stuffed portobello mushroom shepherd's pie. This is a good one. This is super fun. So we're going to start out by prepping our portobello mushrooms. And so what we're going to do is I like to just clean the caps. Mushrooms are like little sponges. So if you run them under water, they're going to absorb a lot more moisture than you need in your recipe. So I just like to take a damp paper towel and kind of run it over the caps, and you can see how dirty that gets. And so just wipe off any of that kind of, I don't know, stuff that's that's on the tops of the caps, and just get them nice and clean. So that's what we'll start with. And then if there's any stems left, you can just pop those off, and you can actually use the stems. Go ahead and eat them. We're going to chop one of these for the filling, and so you can go ahead and save these stems for the filling, and we'll chop those really finely. Not all mushrooms come with the stems attached, but these ones do, so go ahead and use them. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to roast these, and what I like to do is roast them cap side up on a sheet lined with some parchment paper so they don't stick. And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to find my best ones that are going to be good for stuffing. This one has a little ding out of it. This one's a little broken, so I think I'll do the one with a little ding out of it. And put them face down on my baking sheet, and then I'm going to roast them for about 12 to 15 minutes until they start releasing some water around the outside of them, and then I'm going to pull them out of the oven. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add the carrots, some diced mushroom, some onion and garlic to the pan, along with a little bit of thyme and salt and pepper. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by dicing the portobello mushroom cap, and I like to just cut this into slices and then cut it the other way really small. And this is going to give us some nice pieces of diced mushroom. So quickly dice that, good to go. If you want, you can give it another kind of rough chop just to get those pieces just a little bit smaller. And then I'm going to move those to the baking tray here. And you know, I looked at these stems. Normally I would use them, but they're a little woody and kind of look like they're falling apart, so I'm actually not going to use them for this. The next thing we're going to do is dice the carrots, and I think the easiest way to dice a carrot is to take the top off and then cut it into pieces. And then what I like to do is cut the carrot in half when it's really thick, and then cut it in half again. So now you've got these batons, okay? And then what I'm going to do is just slice them like this. And so then we have some really thinly. So now we have some nice evenly cut pieces of diced carrot. And then as it gets a little bit thinner, this one I'd still cut in half, maybe in half again, just to make sure that the pieces are small enough. This one is so thin, I might just cut it in half one time before I dice it. And just chop away until you've done this with all your carrots. And then we'll move them on to the baking tray with the mushrooms. All right, next we're going to dice the onion, and what we're going to do is just cut off this end, and then leave the root end intact, and then we're going to cut right through the root end so that there's a little bit of the root on both sides of the onion. So this makes it really easy for the skin to peel off. I'm going to pull that off and discard that, or you can save it to make veggie stock, whatever you want. And then, take it off both sides. And then to dice it, what I'm going to do is just cut where the root end is here. I'm just going to cut along this, cutting almost to the root, but not quite. So I'm just cutting along this. And then you'll see I have these nice strips of onion here. And I'm going to just turn it sideways and cut it the other direction. And this gives us some nice, evenly chopped pieces of onion. So we'll throw those on the sheet pan. I'll chop the rest of that, and then we'll move on to our garlic. All right, we're going to do garlic now. A really easy way to chop garlic, I'm going to show you. I know garlic can be kind of annoying to cut sometimes, but I'll show you an easy way to do it. So we're going to just start by cutting off where the root where it meets the bulb. Cut that off. And then I'm going to take each clove, and with the side of my knife, I'm just going to press down and kind of smash it. And what that does is it just makes the skin pop right off. Voila! So at that point, after you get the skin off, you can just, I like to kind of chop it in one direction, then turn it and chop it in the other direction. And that gives us some nice pieces of minced garlic. So I'll repeat with the rest and add them to the tray. Okay, so now I have my baking sheet with my portobello mushrooms on it. I have my my chopped portobello mushroom with the carrots and the onion and garlic. And then I have a little bit of salt and thyme here. I'm gonna just sprinkle that over the top. And then you can either drizzle like a tablespoon of olive oil or water over the top, whatever your preference is. And then just toss it. Just toss it with your hands. Get in there with it. Okay? And then we're gonna roast these for about 15 minutes. And like I said before, we're going to look for some water pooling around the outsides of the portobello caps and for the carrots to be nice and tender. So we'll roast that now. Okay, so now we're going to make the top of the shepherd's pie. We're going to use mashed parsnips. So this is just kind of a fun take on shepherd's pie. You could also use potatoes if you wanted to, or cauliflower mash, anything like that, but I just thought it'd be fun to throw some parsnips in here. So parsnips look a lot like carrots. They're often larger than carrots, and they're white, although there are white carrots. But just like with carrots, I typically don't peel them. For a mash, you might want to because it'll make it a little darker, a little more rustic looking. But I just scrubbed them really good, and I'm going to leave the skins on them, or they don't even really have skins, just the outside part. So I'm not going to peel them. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut off this end where the tops were, and I'll just toss that and just cut the large part. And then I'm going to stand it up on its end and cut it like this. And so that gives us some good working surfaces. And so then I'm just going to dice it. And the smaller you dice it, the quicker it's going to cook. So it's kind of up to you because we're just going to mash it. So it really doesn't matter how big the pieces are, but they'll just obviously cook faster if you have smaller pieces. So I'm doing about maybe 1/2 inch pieces here. So just chopping it. So then I have this piece that I cut the end off of, and I'm going to go ahead and chop that. And, ooh, this is a tough one. Whoops. Okay. Ignore that. That was bad knife skills. Okay. So just chop these into kind of like planks like this. And then you can just go ahead and chop them up into the same size pieces as these were. So however you can make that happen, do it. So we're going to chop all of these up, and then we're going to stick them in a pot of boiling water and let them boil for maybe about 8 to 10 minutes until they're nice and soft, like fork tender. And then from that point, you can either put them in a food processor, process them that way if you like nice, smooth, mashed potatoes, mashed parsnips, or you can just use a potato masher to mash them down to, whatever your choice is. So I'm going to get these into the pot of boiling water, and then we'll pull them out and mash them up. Okay, I have my boiled parsnips here. I boiled them in just a little bit of salted water. It's up to you whether or not you want to do that, but it adds a little bit of flavor to them. You could also boil them in a little vegetable broth instead of water, and that will add some flavor to them as well. So I added them to the food processor. You could also mash them with a potato masher, and I am just going to let them puree them, and then I'll add a little bit of almond milk if I feel like I need it to make it go a little smoother. Okay, so these are having a little bit of a hard time blending up, so I'm going to add a little bit of almond milk, about a tablespoon at a time, not too much, because we don't want them to be too thin. So I'm just going to add just a little bit of almond milk, whatever milk you have. Make sure it's unsweetened. Okay, so these are nice. They look like mashed potatoes. They're delicious. Well, I think so. But they look like mashed potatoes. And I'm going to taste them just to see. Parsnips have such a great flavor. They're kind of like almost spicy, like a little cinnamon nutmeggy, a little bit sweet. They're so good. So I think this is kind of the consistency you want, like mashed potatoes. You don't want it too thin, because the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take these portobello mushroom caps and we're going to flip them over. And this one's a little small, but we'll still do it. And what we're going to do is we're going to take this filling that we roasted. I also tossed the carrots, mushrooms, and onion mixture that I had here with a little bit of mustard when it came out of the oven. So just to add a little more flavor. And so I'm going to just top these mushroom caps with this filling that we made. And get a nice amount on there. There should be enough filling here to really get some good filling in there. Okay, so there we go. That used up most of the filling there. Okay, so what we can do next is we'll take a spoon and we'll take this parsnip mash and we'll put it on top, and we'll just kind of make sure your hands are clean. Kind of put it on top here. So I say seal the cap with them, but just make sure it kind of goes around the whole thing. And okay, so there you can see it gets a little messy. Just make sure just be patient, but there we go. So we have this portobello mushroom cap that's all sealed in with the vegetables underneath and the mushroom underneath that. And so at this point, we'll stick them back in the oven just for a few minutes if you want. If you like it like this and everything's warm enough, go ahead and eat it like this. But if you want to stick it back in the oven and put a little brown on top, you can do that as well. So here we have portobello mushroom shepherd's pie. This is a great main course for something like Thanksgiving, the holidays, or just a really special occasion meal. But you can also see it doesn't take that long to make. So it could be a nice weeknight meal too. You can make all of this ahead of time. You could roast the portobellos ahead of time. You could roast the filling ahead of time and stick it all in the fridge, and the parsnip mash. You could have all these done, and then when you come home at night, you could just assemble it and throw it in the oven and heat it through, and it'd be a really quick weeknight meal if you're into meal prepping. So there you go. I hope you enjoy this. Bye.